Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is your host, Jasmine, here again on the platform. Let's talk about it. Thank you so much for being here, and let's get right into what we're going to be discussing on this episode. This episode is going to be dedicated to talking about what is called the negativity bias. And it's been briefly mentioned on the podcast before, but I kind of wanted to give it its own episode just because I felt like it could use some further explanation, and I wanted to be able to make sure that I'm thorough on this platform. I care a lot about that. And because the Chinese New Year, or otherwise known as the Lunar New Year, just happened a few days ago. I wanted to, when I was creating the vision for this episode, I wanted to incorporate that. And I know that it's past by the time that this episode is going to drop. It will have passed already. But I just think that still January, is still the first month of 2023. I still think that there is ample time for people to reset, reconnect, and realign themselves with the vision that they want to have for themselves in 2023, even if it is the 28th or the 30th or the 31st or whatever day you're listening to this. Even if it's June, August, I just think that it's all about mind over matter, which is kind of the theme of a lot of what we're going to be talking about. So let's jump right in. Why don't we? So, just a little educational moment for those who may not know. I had to do some research to even talk about this. So, I figured, hey, I must not be the only one who doesn't know about these things. Um, but long story short, 2023 is what they would consider the year of the rabbit. It is going to be in Chinese culture. I didn't preference by saying that, but it lasts from January 22nd, 2023 to February 9th, 2024. I thought that was interesting. It's not like verbatim 365. Um, it's predicted to be a year of hope. The sign of the rabbit in their culture is a symbol of longevity, peace, and prosperity in Chinese culture. People born on the sign of the rabbit, I said on the sign, people born of the sign rabbit are believed to be vigilant, witty, quick minded, and ingenious. Ingenious. There are 12 signs total, and it's assigned by the year that you're born, unlike traditional zodiac that I think people are familiar with. Um, it's 12 signs, and it's assigned by, your month or just what range date you fall within your month. Um, Ironically, I would be considered a rabbit in Chinese culture based on the fact of I was born in 1999. Um, but yes, they break down their signs similar to, again, the traditional zodiac most people are familiar with by elements of the earth. The elements they use is water, earth, gold, fire, and wood. And it's broken down by the sign. So there can be a water rabbit, an earth rabbit, a gold rabbit, a fire rabbit, a wood rabbit. And all that does is assign personality types that coincide with each element. Um, in their culture, it is believed that the way that you begin your new year will set the precedent. It is believed that the way you begin your new year will set the precedent for your entire year. So they take the holiday very, very seriously, and it's used as a time for a cultural reset if needed and preparation for the year to come. Much like, some people choose to use their New Year's in America. Um, they believe that the activity you are doing or giving most of your energy to on New Year's Eve will inevitably create a chain reaction throughout the rest of the calendar year for what type of things you'll be experiencing and doing and tending to throughout the year. Well, I thought that was interesting because it's basically saying the things that you appreciate will appreciate throughout the new year. And I do believe in that as well. I wanted to kind of take this time to acknowledge the Lunar New Year just because New Year's is one of my favorite holidays, one. So I'm a bit biased, but also just I appreciate the idea of transformation because I've gone through transformations myself, and I am a I'm a I'm a warrior for growth. I love helping people grow. I love seeing people grow, and I am a true believer that growth is one of the most important parts of this lifetime that people can indulge in. And yeah, I wanted to connect the new year to the negativity bias, which I will get into in a second, because I do believe that when you put away childish things, as the Bible would say, but when you put away things that are no longer aligning mindsets, such as the negativity bias, when you put away things that no longer serve you, you're purging yourself and allowing for new things to grow in your life. So I just wanted to make that connection because the Lunar New Year might seem like, well, why is she talking about the Lunar New Year? But I do, and I apologize if I mumble. I'm really trying to work on that. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to work on a podcast because I have a tendency to mumble through words, and people in my personal life tell me all the time and have always told me since I was a child. So I'm trying to be cognizant. So bear with me, y'all. But yeah, that's why I wanted to talk about the Lunar New Year, just because I do believe that if you want January, it's not over yet. If you want it to be an opportunity to change and enact change, take the initiative to do things, choose new mindsets, choose new patterns, choose new behaviors that will allow you to experience the growth that you want to experience this year. So let's deep dive into what the negativity bias really what was it really talking about. Okay, so I want to add that I will be adding a link where I got all the information. There's a bunch of more information if you're interested about the Lunar New Year. I will be adding a link to the episode description for you. Okay, so the negativity bias is defined as, at least for on the article that I used for this episode, it's defined as the tendency to not only register negative stimuli more easily, but also to dwell on these events. It means that we feel the sting of rebuke more powerfully than we feel the joy of praise. It explains why bad first impressions can be difficult to overcome and why past trauma can have such a long lasting effect on our psyche. It The negativity bias impacts one's ability to make decisions, their relationships, pursuit of goals, and their perception of other people. Humans tend to remember traumatic experiences better than positive ones, which is mainly just because we evolved from a species that had to be survivors. And when you are a survivor, the flowers that you smell don't equate in our brain the same way as, you know, needing to be vigilant because you could be preyed upon by a larger predator than you. You know, the stimuli of the predator is going to have more of a lasting effect on your psyche than the beautiful flowers and the endorphins that the flowers gave you. So I'll talk more about that later, but I just wanted to slip that in there. It's not because humans aren't It's not because you just wanna be negative. I just wanted to throw that out there. I think some people think like, "Oh, I just have a hard time thinking positively." At least I know I used to feel that way. And in reality, it's like we're kind of predestined to not think positively, which is important context to have with this process of discovering the negativity bias and where it shows up in your life and how to choose better thoughts. But yes, we have a tendency to remember traumatic experiences better than positive ones. We can recall insults better than, compliments and praise. We react more strongly to negative stimuli. We think about negative stimuli more frequently than positive or for longer periods of time, even. And we respond more strongly to negative events than equally positive ones. And not saying everybody does this, but these are just examples of where your negativity bias could have been showing up in your life and you may not even realize that it was happening. So let's talk about some research. Research shows that we have a tendency to make decisions based off negative information more than positive information. We learn more from negative outcomes and experiences. So the negativity bias influences motivation to complete tasks. So when you think about how, okay, we learn from negative outcomes better than positive ones, and we make decisions based off negative information or stimuli, of course it's going to influence our ability to complete a task. Quote from the article: people have less motivation when an incentive is framed as a means to gain something than when the same incentive will help them avoid the loss of something. I'll repeat that. People have less motivation when an incentive is framed as a means to gain something than when the same incentive will help them avoid the loss of something. I'll use a small example. Small example. Say you have this is hypothetical. Say you have and I'm actually taking this from a video game. So if you peep, you peep. The girls that get it, the girls that the girls that get it. If you doubt, you doubt. But um, say you have a child who has the cure to COVID, right? It was a COVID outbreak and everything. 2020 COVID outbreak happens and your child is immune for whatever reason, and they say, we need to take your child for testing to save the world. And you're like, okay, that sounds feasible. Like, I don't want everybody dying, and if I can help, okay, what do you need to do with the child? What's the catch here? And they say, oh, she may not survive. That can immediately make you say, I don't really care about saving the world because I don't want to lose my child. And that's an example of a way that the negative can overcrowd the potential positive of the same situation. I know that was a bit extreme, but that was the best I could come up with just because I've been watching the show that it's called Last of Us. Anybody who's interested. The show that's based off the video game I was talking about, but I didn't want to use it verbatim from the video game. Anyway, moving on. Moving on. I hope that made sense. I really do. So, the research also shows that the bias is connected to a person's motivation and pursuit of goals. I already talked about that. Um, and it can cause one to focus on what they'll gain if one keeps working towards something versus what one could be more likely to dwell on. Excuse me. So, I talked about how it's connected to a person's pursuit of goals. It can cause someone to feel like they rather that rather than focusing on what they will gain if one keeps working towards something, one could be more likely to dwell on what you might have to give up in order to achieve goals. This is profound to me, especially when you think about the extent to which one is willing to sacrifice to achieve their goals. And I admonish you to go back and check out our What Are You Willing to Sacrifice episode because it really aligns with this so perfectly. Because when you think about it, if you would rather focus on what you have to give up than to focus on the pursuit of the goal that you know aligns with what you are looking to achieve with your life, that is that's a sign that you may just be operating from a very negative place. I'll use a personal example for me. Right now, I have to sacrifice a lot of sleep. Like it's early in the morning right now. I'd much rather be in bed, but I'm here recording the podcast because that's what I know I need to do. And I'm not gonna lie to y'all, sleep. I love sleep. I'm not a morning person, so this is a struggle for me. I have to wake up early for work a lot, and I have to kind of commute kind of far to my job. So yeah, like it's not it's not easy to do to give up sleep, but I know that it's necessary to continue to align my actions with the life that I desire for myself because I do genuinely believe you can will things into existence, but you have to be willing to do the work. And sometimes the work means giving things up that you may not think you want to give up. But your intuition, your support system, you've heard it over and over again. Maybe if you just give this up, maybe if you just let this go, you'll be able to experience a certain amount of growth. So that's just a example for me, I know that I have to work on because I don't like giving up sleep. I really don't. But I have to really be disciplined enough for myself because if I'm not disciplined for myself, help me? Who's going to who's going to propel me to where I want to go more than I can do for myself? Nobody. Because it's my life. Okay. So the negativity bias is directly correlated with having a fear based, or what I like to call survivor or scarcity mindset, not an abundant or growth mindset. And I talk about a growth mindset all the time here on the podcast just because it's so imperative for you to be able to use the tool of your mind to be able to overcome your circumstances because your mind can be just like anything, a hammer. A hammer can help you build a house. A hammer could help you kill somebody. You know what I mean? Like it is a tool that can be used as a tool or it can be used as a weapon. And your mind is the same way. Your mind is one of the most powerful tools we have in our entire body. So best believe it can be utilized as a weapon. So you have to fortify yourself enough to be able to know that your mind can turn on you. Like, not literally, but, figuratively, it can turn on you. It can go back to old ways of thinking. It can go back to old patterns and comfortable patterns of thinking. You may have grown up with, or you may have been raised in an environment where you had to be a survivor and you had to think that way. You had to just do what you had to do to get to tomorrow. But that's not growing. That's not living an abundant life. That's living a life where I'm just trying to make it to tomorrow, which is very survivor mindset. So when you have a more long term foresight and vision for yourself, it makes it easier to then align your actions on a day to day with who you're trying to be. If you don't have a vision of where you're trying to go and who you want to grow into, then you're not going to be able to put away childish things, as I said before. You're not going to be able to put away the survival scarcity mindset. You're not going to be able to put away the, oh, I can't give because I don't have enough for myself. When I have more, then I can give to people. Then I can do more for people. But until then, I'm not doing nothing for nobody because I'm not in the position to help people. You know, the, oh, I don't open up. I'm not vulnerable and I can't go there with people because every time I've done that, it's been to my detriment. It's been to hurt me. It's bit me in the butt, as some may say. And, that's no way to live. That's no way to get more people in your life who you can be vulnerable with. Maybe the people in your life right now you can't do that with, and that's okay to recognize that. But maybe you should remove some things in your life so that you can have more room for the things that you truly want. If you're holding on to the relationships and decision making and the things like I talked about earlier, the motivations that you're operating off of now, if they're not aligned with who you're trying to be, you're gonna have to learn how to let some of that stuff go in order to attract and to align and to manifest and to will into existence the things that you're capable of doing. You just may be a little scared, which is understandable. But you just have to be your biggest support system. Like, not that having a support system isn't an amazing, wonderful thing, but sometimes you may not be able to have that support system. I think because especially my generation, we grew up in a time where we're so connected to people and people are, you can connect with somebody at the tap of a screen. And it's so funny because life wasn't always like that, you know? I don't know. I remember my mom, quick anecdote. My mom would told me about a time my mom's in the retired military and she was stationed overseas and she was by herself and the holidays had came around and it was like the first time that she had been spending the holidays without any loved ones or family or anything. And I just remember her telling me like it was hard. Like it wasn't easy, but she got through it. She did what she had to do. She connected with the people who were on her base and she went to church out there and went to the church and she made something out of her circumstances instead of just being like, "Oh, bah humbug. I can't, woe it's me. I'm not with my family, so I'm just gonna have a horrible holiday." Because it's like, I mean, if that's what you want to do, then that's what you're gonna do. But if you want better, then go get it. Hashtag Team Nike, just do it. Um, but yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, the reason why we think this way is because of evolution. Like in early human history, we had to have a scarcity survivor, fear based mindset to live long. Because if not, if you weren't vigilant, if you weren't concerned about the threats that, they lived amongst at the time, you could be dead. And then you wouldn't be able to procreate. And then we wouldn't be here. So when you think about how evolution works, like the people who survived had to adapt to their environment and what was going on at the time. And they had to live in a constant state of decision making that could result in life and death. So, on a primal level, which is the oldest part of your brain, I don't know if you know that, but on a primal level, you're programmed to assess danger first. So, genetically speaking, we're just able to pay more attention to negative stimuli than positive, like I mentioned before. So, when it happens, you have to give yourself enough grace to know that your brain is just trying to protect you. It thinks that it's just trying to protect you. It comes from a place of just trying to preserve your life. But as the Bible says, you can't lean on your own understanding. And as a believer, I truly believe that you have to be plugged into a source. When you lean on your own understanding, you're bound to fail because we're not equipped to deal with the stuff that we're dealing with right now. We just aren't. We need help, and that's okay. Okay, so finishing up, I just wanted to finish the episode off with some tips. You know me, I'm never going to just drop a bunch of knowledge and not give some type of takeaway that can be applicable. But just some tips on how to overcome the negativity bias. And this is all, most of this information comes from a article I will also link in the um episode description for those who are interested. Um, so yeah. First one is stop negative talk. And I know I have to work on this one myself for sure, but definitely pay close attention to the types of thoughts that run through your mind because you really do have the power to stop thoughts before your mind even begins to go somewhere you do not want it to go. And I know that sounds like okay, easy, but it's actually really not. And that's why I say I definitely have to work on that myself. Intrusive thoughts are real, and um, I have to really remind myself that I'm still in control of my mind, even though my mind can feel like it's controlling me sometimes, especially emotionally. Once my emotions get involved, it can be very hard to be like, oh, just relax. You'd be like, no, I'm angry. No, I'm sad. And it's like, well, you can choose to feel differently, or you can choose to think about things that don't make you feel that way. You can go walk outside, that may make you feel better. You can go exercise, give you some endorphins, maybe distract your mind. And, you know, I don't know, just little things that you can do to help yourself. Um, so instead of fixating on past mistakes, things that can't be changed, consider what you could learn from situations and how it may be able to help you in the future, how you can apply it and allow it to foster your growth in the future. The next one is reframe the situation. Kind of like what I was just talking about towards the end of choosing a better thought, choosing to do something that doesn't make you feel the way that you feel. Um, how you talk about events, people, experiences shapes how our brain interprets that event. So when you fixate on negativity, you have to be intentional about the ways that you reframe or look for ways to view the situation in a more positive light. Um, Reframing is a thing. Like if you truly get in the habit of, as they say, looking at the glass half full instead of half empty, or what I like to say, looking at life through a lens of gratitude. What can you be grateful for in that moment? Because there's always something. There's always something to be grateful for in that moment. And sometimes what that thing is may not feel like it weighs evenly against the negative things going on in your life. But again, that's a choice. If you choose to allow that negativity, and I skipped something earlier. Research shows that negativity basically causes a higher neural response from our brain. So when negative things happen, our brain responds more than positive things. So, again, giving yourself grace to recognize, like, okay, I'm overwhelmed. I'm going through a lot. My brain is doing a lot right now. How can I reframe the situation to where I don't have to give this much energy to this much negativity in my life if I don't want to? And things that help with that, I kind of mentioned this all in point one, but they all go hand in hand. But establishing new patterns is the next one. It's pretty self-explanatory, obviously, but you have to remember that you've been programmed. You're unlearning years of programming to have a negativity bias. So if you don't, the first week, the first month, the first 3 months, the first year, even, if you are s- quote unquote struggling with being able to not allow your negativity bias to have so much real estate in your mind, that's understandable. However many years you've been alive, it starts when you're an infant. Literally, research says it starts when you're an infant. So, however many years you've been alive, that's how many years of unprogramming you're doing. So, you have to give yourself grace through this process and utilize things like podcasts, utilize things like talking to people who you know make you feel good, and just utilizing resources um, that encourage the type of behavior and patterns that you want to have. Some suggestions I have are: go for a walk outside, listen to uplifting music, read a good book, stretch, do quick yoga, do some breathing exercises, meditate, calming breathing exercises. All of those things may seem very minute, but the more you apply those patterns in your life, the more it becomes a part of your lifestyle, to the point where, like I was saying earlier, you're removing the negative things and allowing so much more positive patterns and things into your life. And lastly, which pro tip, I think this is probably the pro tip, is savor positive moments. Because, like we already talked about, our brain is already wired to hyper focus on negativity more than positivity. So the way to combat that is by hyper focusing on positive things that are going on in your life. When something good happens in your life, take a moment, praise God, express your gratitude, write it in your journal, note it, create a memory around this positive thing that your brain can go back to for reference, because you have so many negative things you could probably go back for reference. You probably remember an insult from secondary school that somebody done said to you, or from a job you done had three years ago. You know what I mean? Look, you remember negative stuff that was happening before COVID. It's been what, 3 years since COVID happened. So you our brain can hold on to negative things very easily, but you have to rewire it and reprogram it to want to hold on to the positive things. And that's something I'm really working on this year as well. Like, I feel like over my undergraduate experience, I was able to just hyper focus on so much negative things that happened throughout my undergraduate experience, but I just choose to look at it like that was a part of my story. That's what I needed to happen. I had so many great memories that happened over the course of my undergraduate experience. So I'm not going to allow, like, little things that are only a percentage of the entire totality of what I experienced throughout that phase in my life, to cloud my judgment when I'm able to look back on that experience and look back on that accomplishment, because I'm not going to let the devil steal my joy. Can I get a I'm just saying, because he's looking for a moment to steal your joy. So, yeah. And it requires a lot of effort, like I said, to do so. So don't think it's gonna be easy, but in time, it becomes a part of you. It becomes a part of your lifestyle, just the same way that the negativity bias became a part of you. But it just takes time. You have to give yourself that time and be patient with yourself and give yourself grace. Give yourself the grace that God so willingly gives you. Um, yeah. So celebrate your wins, pamper yourself, travel, try new things, document your memories with videos, photos, make a scrapbook, plan travels around your goals so that when you accomplish something, you have a reward waiting for you at the end. You know, give yourself time to reflect and appreciate the growth you see week to week, season to season, and era to era in your life. That's the biggest advice I could give you. So I hope this episode really resonated with people. This is a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, but it was just so much good information that I felt like needed to be shared because this is something that we all deal with. Like, this isn't individual focus. This is something that even me, I'm dealing with it every day as well. So I just wanted to come on here and talk about a shared experience that I feel like, especially as a person of color, really does affect your ability to show up in places because historically this country hasn't really made us feel as though we have a right to not think negatively. We kind of have a inheritance that makes us feel like we always have to be watching over our back, or we're always going to get the short end of the stick, or the other shoe is always going to drop in my life. And I know I just dropped a bunch of cliches. I'm a clicheer. Okay. I'm a clicheer. Some people may be like, but hey, it is what it is. But yeah, so it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the negative stimuli like we were just talking about in the world. Um, there's a recent video of some Memphis police officers killing someone, or I'm not sure if they killed him. I got messages about it. I haven't seen the video. I have no desire to watch the video, but I've just heard about it. And, even things like that, like, guard your heart, guard your mind. Like, not saying don't engage or don't, you know, do what you need to do to find peace with the situation, but you have to always be protecting yourself. And I implore you to protect yourself because, again, the enemy is seeking to destroy you. He is a roaring lion. Look, I'm a cat owner, okay? And even my little itty bitty house cat is worrisome. Worrisome, always looking to get into something, can be very destructive, adorable, but just worrisome. So, yeah, like, imagine a big lion and how, worrisome the enemy is. He's always watching, always looking from afar, always looking for an opportunity to pounce. So, yeah, like, you gotta fight for yourself harder than he's fighting to destroy you. So, with that being said, I will let you go. But thank you for being here. Okay, I'm done. Sorry. Bye.